All right, this is our tidy up day video. This is a newer one. I know you guys have been watching videos I made for other classes because it had the exact same material on it. But with everything that's been going on the last 2 weeks, I think we kind of need a reset day, make sure everybody knows what has occurred up to this point, and then what's coming after this point, getting us ready for test one. So we're going to discuss the SPSS number 1 assignment that will be due September 21st, which is 2 to 3 days after your test 1, so you don't have to stress about getting it done before test 1. Test 1 is still on Friday, September 18th. In this video, I'm going to show you the weighted mean example of how to calculate your Math 220 grade. We're going to practice another whole histogram and box plot, and from that also show you how to do the TI-83. I know I did not get to that in the classroom, and some people might be confused on that. After this video, so meaning the next video you're going to watch, it's one video with 2 topics in it. So I sort of split it up for 2 days, saying that you can watch, I think, the first 26 minutes or something on one day and the rest on another day. But it's only an hour-long video, and these 2 topics are really intertwined. So honestly, it would probably make more sense if you just watched it all at once. But it's called the empirical rule and z-scores. That material really does finish the material for test 1. We will have another video of review. I'll probably just pick random problems and also make sure you're okay with the problems from the partial review that's already loaded in the test 1 handouts. And then, of course, we have the test. This is a new setup for me. I normally sit on the floor and write on my whiteboard, but I'm going to turn the laptop towards me for a minute. I know the lighting is not that fantastic on me, but let's see. All right, let's discuss the SPSS 1 assignment. This is loaded into the SPSS module stuff. Probably should be the first file, and the file right below it will be the actual file, the data file that I talk about. So you'll find that in the same module. I don't need to hold this up. At this point, since we're online, well, I take that back. A lot of you still are in Harrisonburg. So you do have access, I believe, to the library computers and things like that. So this can be done on your own laptop, or it can be done somewhere on campus. All the computers on campus are loaded with SPSS. A lot of the computers, if you're trying to find the program, you have to look under the I's because technically it's IBM SPSS. If you're downloading it on your laptop, it is better to go with the newer version, version 27, as opposed to 26. And remember, in one of my Canvas announcements, I did load a document from one of my colleagues that might give you a little more instruction of how to download it. All right, so you'll get the program downloaded. Then you will open up the data set that I mentioned here that is in the SPSS module. I write all my SPS homeworks as if you know nothing. So what I do is I type everything up, and then I pretend that I'm a brand new student, and I actually go through my directions, exactly how they are, to make sure it works. So most students say this homework should take no more than an hour. It should not take you 3 to 4 hours, as long as you go line by line to exactly what I'm telling you to do. So basically, I make you do, I'm looking here, 4 different things, okay? Then on the second page, so that's like the 4th thing I tell you to do. Then on the second page, I tell you to open up a Microsoft Word document. And from all the output that you just generated, you're just going to pick and choose the things that I ask for to copy and paste into your Word document. So you are not giving me everything that's on your output screen. Just a few things. This also means if you've made mistakes and your output screen is just scrolling on and on and on because you had some mess ups in there, that's okay because I'll never see it. You're just going to handpick very carefully the things that I asked for. And again, when I underline and bold, that means you really want to pay attention to exactly what I'm asking for. So I think I asked for, well, I tell you to type your name. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things that would have come up. Copy and paste them into Word. I think you get to type one more sentence down at the bottom. And that Word document you're going to save, and that's what you're going to upload to the Canvas assignment. That's how you're turning this in. It needs to be a Word document. If you were printing this, it should be no more than 4 pages. So just to give you an idea, on your Word document, it should be no more than 4 pages of copy and pasting. I'm reading CO. So this has happened in the past. You are welcome to work with other students, talk to other students about it, etc. But you're not allowed to copy other students' files, right? And it is pretty easy to see when you have just directly copied someone's stuff, and you will get a 0 if that happens. So, and that's why also I've made you type a line of maybe who you worked with, who did you, get help from, that type of thing. But getting help does not mean copying someone's work. So, download the program, maybe get started on it. Of course, I can always help you better if it's not the night before. Usually the night before an assignment's due, it's kind of hard for me to help everybody. All right. Once you get into it, that's when questions might come up, although I did try to write it as clearly as I could. Okay. I know I'll be talking about this again on the review, but a lot of you were not able to come to class when I briefly talked about this in class. Test 1, obviously it's online. It's still going to be Friday, September 18th. Right now, I will allow you, I haven't decided positively, but somewhere between 80 and 100 minutes to take it. I will probably open it up for maybe a 3-hour window or something. So you will be getting an email with the exact time, when is it due, how long will you have. And if that time frame for some reason does not work for you, you have to email me. Definitely give me 2 days notice, because I know some of you will have other professors who are planning a 3-hour test in the exact same time frame. So you have to communicate with me and give me time to plan a different time for you, and that requires that I go into Canvas and change things, so it cannot be a last minute thing. The test, the good news is they will be open book, open notes, because that's about the only way to level the playing field for the very small handful of students who feel like it is their right to cheat. So don't let that lull you into a false sense of security. If you do not study for this test as if it were going to be in the classroom with me watching you for 50 minutes, if you don't study like that, you will not be able to complete my test. It is going to take way too long for you to read a problem and be flipping through your entire notebook and every handout, or trying to pull up old videos or my old lecture notes that I've loaded, right? You will run out of time. So you want to make sure that you prepare for this just like it was in the classroom, but knowing you do have the backup of open book, open notes. I don't think Google's going to help you very much. It is not a multiple choice test. What you don't have the option of is using another human being. And this came up last spring. It is painfully obvious when students cheat. The problem is, if you're cheating, you probably don't know what the correct answer is. So then 2 students get together, they have no idea what the answer is, one of them guesses as to what the answer is, and they both type that as the answer. The answer could be so totally ridiculous that it is so obvious to catch 2 students who are writing the most ridiculous, irrational mathematical answer. So it is, even though you don't think I can see you, it is obvious when students do that. So you're not allowed to use any human being, and you are on your JMU honor code for that. Anything else is pretty much fair game. What else do I want to say about the test? I have some random little, I have loaded already a document of how to write your answers for an online test. Do not wait till the night before to read that document because it gives you, the main things. If I ask you a definition, you just type it, right? We're not using equation editor or anything like that for the mathematical stuff. Like, for example, how are you supposed to show me a histogram? Well, you can't from just typing. So my tests are basically text box. Looks like Word, right? You're just going to be typing the answers. So on the how to write your answer document I've loaded, it gives you an example of, hey, let's say this was your histogram. How are you going to describe it to me? Or, hey, here's a data set for a box plot. How are you going to describe that to me? So I would practice those examples as you go through the material, because it is going to be different how you type your answers to me on a test versus how you're doing your problems in your notebook, right? So please look at that before the night of the test. I'm not taking off for spelling. I don't need full sentences, but read the document. I think that will be very helpful. All right. I think that's it for that. All right. So even when I was doing mean word problems in the classroom, on that one mean word problem in class sheet, I did the first two and the fourth one. We did not calculate how to calculate your Math 220 grade, which is a weighted mean word problem example, right? So we're going to go back to the whiteboard now, and we are going to do that. This is based off of your current syllabus. All right. I put a couple cute plants here. I'm trying. See how this works. Hopefully none of my cats, I think there's one locked in here with me, but hopefully they will not come bother us. All right. Put my hair up so it doesn't fly in the video. Okay. Broken pen number 1. How to calculate your Math 220 grade. Now I looked at my syllabus. It looks like each test is 17%, the final exam is 23%, and then I have that pile called SPSS homework for a total of 9%. Okay, those percents are the weights, right? Just like how the number of credits of a class was the weight when we did those problems in class, or how many boys and girls for that first example we did, that was the weight. So here is the weight. So 17% times test 1 plus 17% times test 2 plus 17% times test 3 plus 17% times test 4. It's all one numerator, but I don't want to go too far out there, so I'm going to come over here. Plus, now I do know for a fact that your first SPSS assignment will be 3%, okay? I am not for positive how many other SPS assignments we have. So for right now, I'm just going to pile them all together and say 6% basically for the rest of the SPSS assignments. Now look at what I did. One of the most common mistakes for my students throughout the entire semester, 3% is 0.03. 3% is not 0.3. 0.3 is 30%. If I just confused you, you have got to go review percents to decimals, right? And decimals to percents. You're just basically moving that decimal spot 2 places. So that is 3%, that is 6%, that is 17%. And then the exam, plus 0.23 times the exam. That equals, I'll be lazy, Math 220 grade equals that entire formula. This is exactly what I type in to my Excel spreadsheet. I copy and paste it so Excel can calculate all 140 students' grades for me very easily, right? Now, some students, when I put this up here, especially since you can't raise your hand right now, I usually get 2 various questions. Some students are like, wait, but the problems we did in class, they had a fraction. There was a numerator and a denominator, right? You do not have to write this, so you don't have to write this. if you want to think, I'm not going to write the whole thing. Etc. You could write it like that. 17 times test 1 plus 17 times test 2, then da-da-da, all divided by 100, right? Because a follow-up question that's related is some students are like, oh, fine, but how does this help me in my history class where their syllabus is out of 600 points, right? So if you want to view my syllabus like a points syllabus, I work out of 100 points, and test 1 is worth 17 points. I just think showing it like this is a little bit overkill and actually more confusing. But think about it. What is 17 divided by 100? 0.17. So all I'm doing is changing the form. I just think because, in my opinion, working out of 100% is a much easier syllabus for students, that since I work out of the unit whole 100%, it's so much easier to just think about test 1 being 17% as opposed to 17 points out of 100 points. But back to a history class where you have a 600 point syllabus, and maybe they tell you that your first test is 100 points. Well, you would put 100 here, and then this would be 600, right? You could always turn a points syllabus into percent. If test 1 is 100 points out of 600, just figure out what 100 divided by 600 in your calculator is. So what I'm teaching you for my Math 220 grade is the exact fundamental concept that you can use in every single one of your classes. It doesn't matter if your syllabus is percent or points. They are interchangeable. You just have to more a points view it like this to put the total points under there. I'm doing 100%, much easier. So I'm gonna get rid of this. All right. Now, most students, particularly that week before the exam, right, they will have all of these grades. So they'll have a number plus 0.23 exam equals their grade. And they'll play what I call a what if scenario. What if I make a 70 on her exam? What grade do I end up with? Or what about if I need a B in her class? What do I have to make on the exam? A lot of students do that the last week. And that's going to be very easy to do. But other students are particularly interested in, well, what's my current grade? And that's why you guys don't particularly like that I don't use the Canvas what if grade and the whole final, course grade in Canvas. So let's do a little example. We'll call it current grade example. All right, let's say you've taken test 1 and you made an 87. Let's say you've taken test 2, you've made a 79, and the SPSS homework number 1, you made a 96, okay? So this would be kind of representing, I don't know, 4 to 5 weeks from now that you have those 3 grades so far, and you want to know what your current grade is. And you start using my formula. You're like, okay, 0.17 times 87 plus 0.17 times 79 plus 0.03 times 96. Most students get that far. And they actually stick that into their calculator, which I have forgotten to get in front of me. Hold on. I did this once, but I want to check my work. Oh, sorry. So 0.17 times 87 plus 0.17 times 79 plus 0.03 times 96. Yes, 31.1. And that's when I start to take the emails of students saying, I used your formula, but I know there's no way I have a 31 in your class. And I'm like, yeah, no, you don't. What have they forgotten to do? So let's go back up here, right? All of these weights in the original formula I gave you add to the number 1 because it's representing the unit whole. So I didn't need to divide by 1. Remember when we were doing the in-class problems and I showed you how you should be able to add up the weights and that should be your denominator? All of these add up to 1, so I just decided not to show you divided by 1, right? But here, this guy plus this guy plus that guy actually adds up to 0.37. So you haven't finished my whole class. You have only finished 37% of my class from a grading standpoint. So you can't just do the numerator. You have to remember how all of our weights are supposed to make the denominator. So that was the numerator divided by 0.37 will give you a current grade of 84.05. So if you stay in that good habit I was trying to talk about in the classroom, or if you watch the video, that add up the weights will tell you what you're supposed to be dividing by. And you can kind of tell an 84 seems like a reasonable grade. Obviously 31 was not. So, you can even see how this is going to work after test 3. You'll be adding another 17% here. So then I guess you would be dividing by 0.54. It's going to grow as the semester goes on. You have the capability of doing that, and it's wonderful practice. You should always, always, always know what your current grade is in my class. All right, that's it for mean word problem for your Math 220 grade. Let's move on to a data set. We're going to do a box plot, practice our TI-83. So if you haven't, while I erase here, grab out your TI-83. And the luxury of a video is you can always pause me if you want to go back through something before I keep talking. That's why I like videos. All right, I just made up a data set. It was a little bit easier. I wanted to keep it a very small data set for this video. And we're going to practice the TI-83. All right, here's the data set. I'm giving you no context. It's just a list of numbers. 45, 87, 20, 42, 52, 58, 41, 40, 59. So in the notes I had loaded for the box plot video you would have watched, I did tell you that in that video I was having those students actually find the medians by hand, but you are not going to do that. You're going to use your TI-83. So I put some directions towards the bottom, but I can imagine that maybe someone had gotten a little confused. So let's start this from square one as if we were in the classroom and I was teaching this to you for the very first time. Okay. Get your calculator out. Now, you may not be able to see my screen very well, but when we're in the classroom, you can't see my screen either. Turn on your calculator. Okay. Now, go to find the stat button, at least give you an idea where it is. Find the stat button. You should see Edit Calc Test. Edit, and number 1 edit is where you put data in. So hit that. Now, right now, I have data in L1, L2, L3. I want to do this for students who maybe are very confused. Let's see. See that L1, L2, L3, we're going real low tech here. I got my flashlight out on my iPhone, right? We need to clear L1. So take your up arrow, the up arrows, go up to the actual L1 title above the horizontal line. Do not hit the delete button. If you ever find that you lose your entire column called L1, it's because you hit the delete button and it's really easy to get it back. But I want you to hit the clear button. The clear button. Okay? Nothing happens until you hit enter. Then when you hit enter, it should have cleared out your data in L1, but the L1 title is still there. At this point, type in this data set. 45, enter. 87, enter. 20, enter. 42, enter. 52, enter. 58, enter. 41, enter. 40, enter. 59, enter. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yes, there are 9 data points. 2, 4, 6, yes, 9 data points. So you should be sitting in the 10th spot, but it's empty, right? Okay, so you typed your data in. Now, go back to the stat button in the middle right there, stat. Now you're going to right arrow over to calc. Calc stands for calculate. Now here is where some of you might still be in a really bad habit from high school. So even if you think you're okay on the calculator, please listen to the next directions. Calc, and choice 1 is 1 var stats. Okay, I want you to hit the enter key exactly 1 time. Don't you dare hit the enter key twice. Hit the enter key 1 time. Now, something I couldn't type up very neatly on those notes was this. I would say 20% of you have the older calculators like I do. So I want to talk to you first. Then I'll get back to the people with the newer calculators. Right now, when you hit the 1 var stats and you just hit enter 1 time, this is on your screen and there's a little black cursor that's just blinking at you, okay? And it's like, what do you want from me? Your calculator, so this is a cursor that's blinking. Your calculator wants to know, what column do you want me to do the statistics on? Well, if you put your data into L1, you need to type the second button, the second function. It's not always yellow, it's yellow on mine, but the second button of the number 1. When you do that, an L1 should come up on your screen. So now, hold on. There's no way I'm going to be able to, unless I turned, yeah, forget that. I can't get another whole lamp right now. So it should say 1 var stats L1. Now hit enter and hold tight for a second. The TID, the students with the better software, newer calculators, when you hit the 1 var stats and you hit enter 1 time, okay, I'm going to guess from memory. I do not have a new calculator anywhere in my home. Yours is more intuitive. I think it says XList, it might say frequency, and then calculate. Don't quote me on that, but you have like this whole screen of stuff to fill in. The XList, make sure it says L1. If it doesn't, you're going to hit the second of the 1 button. Frequency should always just say 1. We're never going to change that. And then calculate. But this thing of telling your calculator which column, let's say I wanted to do stuff on L3. If at the very beginning you had just hit the enter key twice, by default it's always going to do L1. But if you wanted stuff on L3, you're going to have completely the wrong stuff. So I always want you to think about, where did I put my data, and make sure your calculator is labeled properly. Okay. All right. Now, everybody, look at your screen and know that there is more than what you see. So, hold on. I'm checking a few things. Make sure I put my data in properly. Yes, okay. The first thing you see, we don't need this for the box plot, but I just want to talk about the stuff you're seeing. That is the sample mean. But remember, even if I was viewing this actual data set as a population, that would also be mu, the population mean. And this will help you do dentist handout number 1, because I ask you for the sample mean. Then I'm like, oh, pretend it's a population. What's the population mean? Well, that's the population mean for that data set if you want me to pretend it's a population. We don't really need the next 2 things. Then you see the sample standard deviation and the population standard deviation. You should have already watched the video on this, so you know what I'm talking about. Sample standard deviation, population standard deviation. Those are 2 different numbers, because remember, when you watch the video, which was probably just a day before this video, there are different formulas for the standard deviations, depending on if it's sample and population, but that's where you get those from. There is more. Make sure you hit the down arrow key like 5 times. You got a lot more coming. You should see that Q1 is 40.5. The median is 45, and Q3 is 58.5. That's the stuff that we need to do the box plot, okay? So again, if I went a little fast there, back me up about 5 minutes and rewatch it. Let's do the box plot. I have what I need. Now, you would have already watched the video for box plot, right? At a minimum, I know I'm going to need IQR. One of the most common mistakes on test 1 is for people not to use the right formula for IQR. IQR is not max minus min. It is Q3 minus Q1, which looks like that should be 18. Maybe before I even keep going, I would encourage you to pause the video right now and go do the box plot yourself. Then turn me back on and you'll know if you got it completely right. That's how you prep for my test. You re-practice stuff yourself, then you look at the answer key or your notebook, and if you got it right, you know you're good to go. Okay, I'm going to keep going though. I know at a minimum I will need 1.5 IQR, so you just go 18 times 1.5 in your calculator. That gives you a 27. These are actually integers, but if they were not, I would not round them. I would use a 0.5 or a 0.25. I'm just getting lucky so far. I have integers. Okay. I did probably talk about on the video, you don't need to draw these to scale because at some point you might realize you're off your paper. This is the only graph that even if we were in person, I'm like, you don't have to draw it to scale. Just make sure you label everything. So here comes my box. This is Q1. I'm not labeling it Q1, I'm labeling it 40.5. This is Q3. I'm going to put the median wherever the median is. And remember I said, we're not doing it to scale. All I need to know is it dead center? Is it a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right? I can tell that 45 is going to be, to the left of center. How do you know what the center is? I'll remind you. You can take the average of 58.5 plus 40.5 divided by 2. 49.5 would be the exact middle. So yes, 45, when I'm trying to write for this box plot, is of course to the left. Okay, so I got those 3 pieces. Whiskers are the very last thing you do. We need to do fences. So remember this first invisible fence? These are the formulas. You have to memorize, but since it's open notes, I guess you don't, but it would make your life quicker if you did. This is Q3. I'll write it one more time. Plus 1.5 IQR. So I guess it's 58.5 plus 27, which is 85.5. I'm going to circle that. That is the fence, this number is not like space in between. I'm labeling the fence. I'm going to look at my data set and I'm going to ask myself, do I have any numbers bigger than 85.5? Yes, I do. I have 87. Here's the problem. I know 87 is an outlier. I don't know what kind. Is he mild? Is he extreme? So I absolutely need the next fence. This is Q3 plus 3 IQR, which I've not calculated, so I kind of need to go back to square one. 58.5 plus 3 times 18. That gives you 112.5. That does not look like a point. 112.5. Okay, now I know that 87 is a mild outlier, and I do label the outlier in the middle, or somewhere between the dotted lines, right? If you have more than one outlier, you're going to label all of them. This one only had one, which means, now remember when we talked about whiskers, the whisker comes to the highest data point that's not already an outlier. Well, 87 is already an outlier. So what's my next highest data point? This is a small data set. You should be able to eyeball it. Nope. 59. He's my next highest data point. Tiny little whisker, but the end of that whisker is 59. Most of the work usually occurs up here, but let's see if we have some stuff on the low side, because you might have low outliers. Got to do that first fence. This one is Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. So this fence, again, not the space in between, this is the actual fence, 13.5. Do we have any data points smaller than 13.5? No, we don't. So there's no reason to even check the next fence. If I don't have any data falling past this, how could I have data falling even further? I can't. So this whisker is actually coming down to the minimum, which is 20. That 20 is the label for the end of the whisker on the left. Everything is labeled. So again, if you were doing this on paper for me, let me show you now what I would require, the minimum, to get all your points. Okay, technically, you would not have to show me here. Let me fix this up a little bit because it's a video. It's not like you can't go back. You don't have to show me your intermediate work. You have to show me the outlier fences labeled. You have to show me all of those pieces labeled and any outlier. So what's in the red circle is the minimum that gets you all your points. But what about if you've done something wrong? And I don't know what you did, and you have 80 here. If you don't show me any work that you did, the stuff that I erased, I can't even give you partial credit. So you always have to weigh how much work that you're gonna, type out to me on the test. So in case you screw up, you can still get partial credit. And even though I know I will remember to say this during the review video, it's gonna bear repeating a couple of times. I'm gonna go on a tangent here about test 1. Here, I'll turn this, let me finish. This one is not one that our skew clues are clear. I would not ask you about skew on this one. The dentist handout 1 has a box plot that the skew is super clear, so you can practice how do you know skew off of that one. But let me make, back to 8. Let me make a random comment about test 1. Do not, well, first of all, I don't lock each question. You can go forwards and backwards throughout the test. If you want to do question 5 first and then come back to question 1 or whatever, that's up to you. Always do the questions, or don't get stuck on a question that's not worth that many points, right? Skip it, keep going, do the questions that have the most points. But, hold on. Oh, that just scared me. My screensaver with the password just came on and I thought maybe it had stopped my video. Haven't moved my mouse in a while. Okay. When you're taking my test, don't do the entire test on your scratch paper and then tell yourself, and then I'll go type in answers. I had that happen in the spring and students ran out of time and they literally would turn in or had to turn in half blank test. You do one problem, you type the answer. You do the next problem, you type the answer, and you do the problems worth the most points first. Don't type too much. You can, if you find that you complete the test and you have extra time, then that's the time to maybe go back and show me even more work, background work, to get partial credit. But absolutely do one problem at a time. Don't make your scratch paper perfect. I'm never seeing it, right? So do a problem, type in your answer, go to the next one. I'll remind you of that on the review day. All right, back to what we're doing. So there's your box plot. And we cannot tell skew on this, so I'm not even going to talk about it. All right, since we have this data set so nicely in front of us, let's just go ahead and practice one more histogram. Very small data set, so shouldn't take long. Making sure that people are not forgetting to look at the guidelines, right? right, so step one said the number of intervals is approximately the square root of n. In this case, approximately the square root of 9. We're getting lucky. It's a nice 3. But even if that were an 8 or a 10 or 11, you can still use 3, right? Now, what are we going to count by? Max minus min divided by what number did you decide you were going to use in step 1? This gives you 22.3. There's really no need to count by 22. Let's be lazy. Let's count by 20. That just seems so nice. What are we going to start at? Now, again, it's kind of hard. I have no context. Were these people's ages? Was this number of, I don't even know, were this like weights of objects in a room? I have no context for what this data is. So my min is 20. It's such a nice number anyway. Let's start at 20. Okay. That 20 has absolutely nothing to do with that 20. I've just realized a coincidence that happens sometimes when I write math problems. I just made up a data set. Pure coincidence here. You don't start at what you're counting by. It just so happens that what we are counting by coincidentally lines up to what my minimum is. Pure coincidence. All right, got to get organized into a frequency distribution first, which is a table. So I said I was going to start at 20 and count by 20. Let me make sure yeah, you can see. See, if you saw me do histograms in class, I kept telling you guys that I got lucky because in class, I kept using the number of intervals I said I was. This is a great example of what usually happens to me. I said earlier I was going to have 3 intervals and I ended up with 4. It's perfectly fine. That's what we call the ballpark. Now, carefully look at the data set. I'm going to cheat and use my notes. I hope I did this right. That's the 87. We didn't have anybody in there. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I think I got that right. Okay, so there's your frequency distribution. There's your 9 data points. My frequency, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8. Mark off your x-axis evenly. It's not real hard. I'm labeling the tick marks, not the space in between. So I got 1, 7, nothing, 1. That, especially when it only has 9 data points, really is a distribution I would not ask you to describe. Whether it's skew or symmetrical, who knows? But it is what it is. It is a correct histogram. Okay. To finish up this video, we're going to do one more mean word problem. So I think this is a really nice review of the harder topics before you then get into the empirical and z-score for the next video. Yes, you are still responsible for stem and leaves and dot plots and categorical bar charts and definitions, but that stuff is pretty simple that I tried to highlight and work on the harder topics for this video. All right. Now, I did this in class. I know I may have mentioned it to one of my sections. For the students who couldn't come to class, the video that you watched on mean word problems, I'm not sure if I mentioned this story, but it's going to bear mentioning again, and you can tell how salty I am still about it. When I was at Georgia Tech, now think about it, that was a long time ago, grades came in the mail, and I remember it was Christmas time. So I finished up the semester or whatever, and my grades came, and they were wrong. 2 professors had made a mistake and given me 2 wrong grades. So I thus had to wait until classes started to be able to call my professors through the phone, because at that time email was not happening. And yes, they had just made mistakes. It was not me begging for a grade. Hence, this is why I think it is so critical that you learn how to calculate your grade in my class and all of your classes, because myself and the rest of your professors are human and we can make mistakes, just like two of my Georgia Tech professors. They made human mistakes. And if I had not calculated my own grade, my GPA would have stayed a whole lot lower than it was. So this is an example. I pulled up my transcript. I do still have my Georgia Tech transcript from 1990. All right. Let's see. Let me see if we need that info. We'll do this in two parts. So let me start here. The current semester. I was taking 5 classes, 3 credits each. I actually had a 6th class, but it was like a pass-fail special class, so he didn't go into the GPA. So that's where my GPA was coming from. At Christmas time, when my grades came in the mail, for that current semester, it said I had a 3.0. And I knew that was a little bit low. So then I looked at the individual grades and I realized 2 of my professors had given me the wrong grade. Okay. So when I read my grades, it stated I had a 3.0. And here's what had happened. Hold on. Two classes, they gave me the wrong grade. One professor gave me a B and it should have been an A. A different professor gave me a C and it should have been a B. Now, I realize the way I wrote this, not that it matters, but it's my pride right here. It says one of the C's. This was the only C on the transcript. It was not correct. It should have been a B. So what is my new GPA? So made them fix it. Made them fix it. What is my correct GPA? Okay, because when it came in the mail, it said I had a 3.0, and I'm like, 2 of my grades are wrong. So let's see how that affected my GPA. All right, my overall, I had taken 15 credits, right? And it said I had a 3.0. Interestingly, on my transcript, they round the GPA to 1 decimal place. So right now, I'm not going back on my rule of 4 decimal places for JMU. This is exactly what is on my Georgia Tech transcript. Okay, so one of the B's should have been an A. And these are all 3 credit classes. So that's how many credits. B is worth 3. So I got to kick out that B. And I need to add it back in as an A. So instead of it being worth 3, it's worth 4. Kicked out the B, put it back in as an A. All right, that C that professor had given me, that would have been worth a 2. That was supposed to be a B. So one correction, the other correction. We're just making grade changes. So I'm still dividing by 15. You can check your work. 15 minus 3 plus 3 minus 3 plus 3 does still give you 15. And let me check my math. Gives me a 3.4. So for that semester, those 2 mistakes that humans made, had lowered my semester GPA from a 3.4 to a 3.0. Obviously, it also at that point had lowered my cumulative. If I had not gotten those grade changes, absolutely enough of a difference where I would not have graduated with low honors at Georgia Tech. So 2 mistakes, yes. Once they fixed it, it rebounded to a 3.4. I'm just making some notes. All right. My real life. That is enough for this video. So back to me. Practice, repractice. Box plots, histograms, mean word problems. Make sure you are an expert at all of that. Start getting really good at all your definitions, discrete, continuous, descriptive stats, inferential stats, quartiles, percentile synonyms that I gave you on those box plot notes, all that stuff. Then again, the next video is empirical rule and z-scores. They're kind of, they're 2 topics, but they do have some intersection to them, so it makes sense if you want to do that all together. And then you're going to practice that stuff. You're going to practice everything to prepare for test 1 on Friday the 18th. I will see you soon. Come see me in office hours.